Hello and welcome to another HSMA solution video. Today we're going to be going through exercise 2 of the HSMA session Python Programming 2, which is session 1F in HSMA 6. Now, the first task in this exercise is all about exception handling. What's exception handling? Well, it's basically making our program a little bit better at dealing with things going wrong. So rather than just failing out, having a bit of a panic and going, I don't know what to do, and just quitting, we can tell our program how to fail a little bit more gracefully, whether that's telling the user to do something different, whether that is whether that's doing something different or just giving the user an error message and quitting in a rather more serene way, then that's what we're going to do with our exception handling. Now, when do you want to handle exceptions? When should you be thinking about doing this? Often it's when you don't have control over what is coming in. So whether that's the user inputting something and you're expecting them to input an integer number, but they actually decide to write 42 as FORTYTWO, and you haven't designed a flow to work with that. Or maybe it's that you're importing a comma separated value file or some other kind of file from the internet, or from someone sends you one every week and you do something with it. Then that would be when it would be a good idea to have some level of exception handling, so that you are checking that things are as expected, effectively. There's also some other ways we can do this. We can add in tests where we say, is this equal to this? If not, don't do this next bit, that kind of thing. But we haven't covered that so far in the course. We will maybe go on to that a little bit later. So what we're going to be using today is the try, except, else, finally model of exception handling. So what we have when we do try, try is basically this will happen first. This will be attempted first. The code will try and do whatever is in the try block. If there is something that goes wrong, then this will happen. If there is error in the code. Error when running the code above, effectively. Else, if the bit in the try block works, this will run. And finally, this bit will run regardless. So you can see every time, I'm just writing comments here, but we have try, and then everything inside this indented bit of code will happen within the try. And this is everything in the try will run first. If there's an error in the try, everything in this indented block will happen next. It will only happen though if there is an error in try. If there isn't an error in try, it will go to this else bit and do probably what you hoped your code would do with the input you've received. The finally happens regardless. If there's an error, it will run. If there's not an error, it will run. So actually, let's work backwards, because we've been told that if there, regardless of whether the user input something valid or not, a message should be printed saying, what a great little app this is. Let's do that, because that is the easiest thing to tick off our list. So, what a great little app this is. So, what do we need to do next? Well, first we actually need to try getting an input from the user. So let's say user age is an integer input from the user saying, that's your age. So just a reminder, when we run this, the user will be presented with a message that says what is their age. We will then take that response, which is always stored as a string, always stored as a bit of text, regardless of what the user puts in, comes as in a bit of text, and we will try and convert it into an integer. Now, if the user has entered something that can't be turned into an integer, like the word Bob, then we will get an error, at which point this except clause will happen. If the user has entered a nice valid integer, we'll run the else bit. So what were we meant to do if we got a valid input? The user will be informed how old they will be at their next birthday. So let's just print a nice F string, format string, so at your next birthday, you will be user age +1, so you'll be 1 year older than you currently are. If there is an error, then what do we want to do here? Well, effectively, we need to be able to ask the user to enter another age until we actually get an age that is correct. I guess that's basically what we need to do. We need to say, okay, well, this is no good. I need you to try this again. So let's print out a message for them saying that's not a valid number. Please try again. Now I'm going to run this, and I think what we're going to find is this isn't going to quite work as we're hoping, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Let's see what this first little bit does. So, oh, and I haven't set up my chosen environment yet, so I'm just getting connected to the base kernel. Just thinking about that. So we've now been asked, what is your age? I'm going to say 31. At your next birthday, you'll be 32. What a great little app this is. So that side of it seems to be working. If we enter a nice valid number, then we get a message saying what age will be at our next birthday, and we get what a great little app this is. Let's try running this again, and I'm going to put Bob in. That's not a valid number. Please try again. What a great little app this is. Well, I'm not being given the option to add in to ask for another number at this point, which is not very much use to us right now. So what am I going to do? Well, we're going to go back to our good old friend, the while loop. So by default, I'm going to assume that the user has not yet entered anything as an input that is valid. So I'm going to set up a is user input valid false. This is just a variable that will track whether we've had a valid input from the user yet. Now, if the user does enter valid input, then we will set this to true. And where the while loop comes in is we will say while is user input valid is false. We put the colon after our condition, which is whether the user input valid is false, and we need our two equal signs there because we're not assigning false, we're saying, can you check whether this is the same as this, please? And then I will indent this whole lot here. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to try and run this again. So this time, what is your age? 31. Brilliant. At your next birthday, you'll be 32. What a great little app this is. Now let's try the opposite. Let's enter Bob. That's not a valid number. Please try again. What a great little app this is. And I'm going to try another incorrect one. There we go. It's not a valid number. Let's try 20, like that, written out in words. Nope, still not a valid number. Well, I am 31, and my next birthday I'm going to be 32, and we don't have the prompt coming up anymore. And I'm just going to quickly chuck in a couple of extra print statements, just showing you where the true and false is happening. So I'm going to, at every possible stage, I'm just going to quickly put in is user input valid. Well, actually no, I'm just going to do it during our try and our accept. So again, if I put in Bob, that's not a valid number, please try again, and we've printed that the user input valid is false. And we've got what a great little app this is, because remember that regardless of what happens, we will be printing this what a great little app this is. Now at this point, our code goes back to the start of this whole chunk and goes, right, okay, user input valid is still false. Well, let's keep going until it is true. So now if I enter 31, it goes, is user input valid true? Well, let's print that. It is now true because it was a valid number. We didn't get any error because we entered 31, which Python could convert into an integer number, and therefore the code ran as expected. I'm just going to get rid of those. Run this one last time. And this all appears to be working. So that is task 1.